Good evening. Welcome to Convention of States Indiana Live. Do you think we have a big problem with our federal government? If you do, stay tuned because we at Convention of States have a solution as big as the problem. Our broadcast host is Dale Parrish. He's the Convention of States Indiana State Director. Take it away, Dale.
Well, good evening, everyone. And once again, thank you, Maringo Mike, for that introduction. Um, we're planning on using Maringo Mike more often as we develop more clips with featuring him. I think he's going to be a great addition to what we're trying to do here in Indiana. But as Maringo Mike said, my name's Dale Parrish. I am the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast. We broadcast every Monday evening, 7 p.m., and our objective is to try to reach out to Hoosiers, reach out to people in the state of Indiana that that would maybe like to get involved with our movement, Convention of States. So that's the audience that we're targeting, and those are the ones that we're trying to reach in the state. And of course, we're open to anyone else that would be interested in getting involved with us and listening to us. So that's the whole purpose of our broadcast. Now, our format is that we're going to open with a discussion here very shortly. We've got a very, very interesting topic to talk about this evening. If time permits, then we'll get into presenting you some general information on how we're doing in the state. Then we'll get into what we call the basics of Convention of States, the basic tenets that our movement is based upon. And then we'll wrap up, try to recognize people that have tuned in with us tonight, and wrap up, tell you about our next broadcast and what's coming up, and then wrap things up. Now, before we go much further here, I want to issue my standard warning that I always issue, and that is that in the event that your screen would go blank or freeze up, please just know that we've encountered a technical problem. And this has happened in the past. And as you know, these technical problems, you never know when they're going to happen. So it will probably happen again. But in the event that that would happen, just know that we've encountered a technical problem. And I ask that you not linger around waiting for us to come back on, because it just takes too long for us to get everything up and going. And I don't want you to have to wait around for that. So if it does happen, just put us on your calendar for next Monday evening at 7 p.m. and tune in and talk and join us that evening. All right. Well, as I said, our first segment this evening will be a discussion topic that we generally have. And tonight, we're going to talk about the success that we've had here in the state of Indiana with gun shows. Now, we here in the state of Indiana, we do one of our main objectives. Let me even back up a little bit further. One of our main objectives is to grow the grassroots. And that means getting more people involved in Convention of States. And as a matter of fact, this broadcast is one of those activities that we engage in, trying to get more people to join in Convention of States. One of the activities that we've had great success at is providing an information table at gun shows in and around the state. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm bringing on two individuals that have been intricate in our success. Gary Harbaugh, who is our co-state director. Gary's in charge of operations, the operations side of our organization, which includes all the district captains and region captains in our state. And then the other individual is Ed Paraguay. Ed is our district captain here in District 85. And Ed has pretty much designed the information table and set the mark for all the other district captains in our state to use. So let me bring those individuals on into the broadcast, and we'll get started with our conversation. Hi, Ed. Hi, Gary. How you doing?
Hello, Dale.
Very well.
Good. Glad you could join us tonight, folks.
Thanks for having us.
Let's get started then. I mentioned Gary. We'll start off with you here. I mentioned that this is one of the activities, am I right, that we engage in throughout the state, that we encourage our district captains and region captains to engage in, and that is growing the grassroots. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, and of course the grassroots. I'll touch on this again a little later on in the broadcast tonight. But of course, the grassroots includes citizens, you and me, as well as our state legislators. But we're looking to reach out to other citizens in the state. So tell me, Gary, why do you think we have had so much success at gun shows?
Well, Dale, typically at gun shows, we find people who are like-minded. That is, they're oriented toward liberty and freedom and the maintenance of our freedom. They're typically people who tend to believe more in limited government. And so, yeah, we've been very effective at the gun shows at spreading the word to the grassroots, which is really informing people. Some people have heard about us through Facebook or through, Mark Levin or something like that, but there's many people who've not heard of us. And so we have a great opportunity to get face-to-face with people and spread the word about the Convention of States project.
Okay. All right. Good. Now, I know when we talk about gun owners, I know you've encountered this. I've certainly encountered it. That, as a matter of fact, I might even mention that there are some gun rights organizations that are somewhat against what we're trying to do for fear of losing gun rights, gun ownership rights. Have you encountered that, Gary?
I have talked to people that feel that way, but not at gun shows. I find them other places occasionally, but most people understand that what we are all about is preserving rights and limiting government. So we want to limit freedom, not rights.
Okay. And certainly, and of course, when we talk about gun owners, we're talking about the Second Amendment, and that is not at all anything that we want to address at a convention of states. So, but I know, as I said, I know that there's some organizations out there that question what we're trying to do for fear of addressing the Second Amendment. So
yeah.
So okay. So do you think then, by and large, this group of people tend to relate to Convention of States then?
Very much so. When people walk by and we talk to them and we tell them we want to limit the government, size of government, power of government, put term limits on people, on federal officials, most of them look at that and say, yeah, where do I sign?
Right.
Because we're very much in agreement with the objectives that we have of limiting government and protecting the rights of we the people.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, Ed, I want to turn to you, and I'm going to bring up, I hope people can see this PowerPoint. I got a couple slides that I want people to see. This is Well, Ed, you tell me now, how did you've designed this table and this slide? I hope people can see it. This is from, I believe, the January gun show here in Fort Wayne. And tell us how you came up with the design of this table.
Well, we tried a couple of ideas where we worked with the table. Uh, Noticed other vendors had support for their advertising that were made from PVC pipe. And so we talked to one who happened to be right next to us, and he let us get a good look at it. And I made a sketch and knew what I had to do. And so the sketch was good enough that I actually shared it with a couple of other district captains who duplicated it. But essentially, it comes apart into 2, 4, 6, 8 pieces. So the whole thing can be wrapped up with a bungee cord, but so it fits together dry, and each of the uprights has a foot on it that we can clamp to a table. Most of the places where we exhibit have tables available. In this case, it was the Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne, and just take a couple of C-clamps and clamp it down to the table. I've done the same thing with plastic folding tables, which are somewhat thicker, and it works well in both. And then I also noticed that many vendors have a tablecloth of some sort so that you hide the legs of the table and dress it up, because some of these things are pretty well worn and they don't look that great. So the tablecloth is sewn from a wide bolt of fabric. My wife was nice enough to put that together.
Okay.
It fits a 3x8 table, and then in the picture there, behind the fellow on the right, you can see a riser, which is nothing more than an open box made from some melamine material that you can buy from a lumber yard. And it allows people to be mostly upright when they sign. Even people with good handwriting, if they have to write or print legibly when they're leaning over, have a tough time doing a good job. And so this certainly makes it easier for them to sign.
Oh, okay. That's if they're doing a manual petition, then that's where they can fill the petition out there, huh?
Yes.
So that's good. That's good. Okay. Now, I notice here, and I think this is very important, that we learned that you should stand in front of the table to engage people. Am I correct?
Absolutely. The first show we tried, we sat behind it and would say hello to people, but they would turn their heads to avert their gaze and scoot by rather quickly. So we learned that it's better to be out in front, so you can kind of stand there in the flow of traffic, and then the next thing you have to do is say something that will catch their attention. My question is usually, have you heard of the Convention of States? And people will say no. By that time, they're looking at the upper banner, which lists the 3 things that we talk about the most: limiting federal spending, term limits, and limiting federal power. Okay. And then I pull up a 1-page sheet that shows Article 5, and what is highlighted on that is the second method by which the Constitution can be amended. And if I get that far, they'll usually come over and listen for another 30 seconds and either sign the petition while they're standing there, or agree to take more information and read about it.
I think that first line that you made reference to is what we call the elevator speech. So that's what gets their attention, is that very first line. Okay. Now, Ed, you told me, and I think you got an update on this, the success that we've been having, and we measure this success in the number of petitions that get signed. I know we were doing 50 a day. You think that's even better than 50 a day, right?
Yes, the 50 a day figure, I think for the most recent show, which was November 30th and December 1st here in Fort Wayne, we had something like 119. So we're close to 60 a day for that show. But the show we did last March, we had something like 240 petition signers. So it was better than double,
Yeah.
about double what we did this time. Now that's because of two factors. At the show in March, we had a few more helpers at any given time during the day, and we had one fellow, Lowell, who was good at actually chasing after people if they got by us, and he did convince a few people to sign. The other factor is that the attendance at the most recent show, being Thanksgiving weekend, was down quite a bit. And as I recall, that was the case last year. The thing that's different about that weekend is that we signed, I think the number was 21 people from out of state. And every one of those who signed was actually from a state which has not passed a resolution. The fellow who had come the farthest was from South Dakota visiting relatives, and by Saturday he needed to get out of the house.
Is that right? Good. All right. All right, Ed. Thank you very much, my man. Thank you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Hope you all can see this on the PowerPoint. That's Ed and Gary at a recent gun show in front of our table. Well, Gary, let me switch back to you. Engaging people. That's what it's about, isn't it?
It really is. We have to give that elevator pitch and tell our story to people. And most people, when they hear the story that we tell them, they're ready to, come on board and help out and be part of the project.
All right. Good deal. Future gun shows. Have we got any in the works? I know we did one in Kokomo here recently. Do we have any more in the works?
I don't know the exact dates, but I know that we have people looking at doing some upcoming gun shows.
Okay.
And so people can look for us there. People can look at our Facebook page, and we plan to put them on there to let people know when they can find us. If they've got questions they want to ask, they can come and engage with us face to face, or they can go online, of course, and read about the Convention of States project.
Right, at conventionestates.com. And another thing, these gun shows, these are can be found pretty much year round, can't they?
Yes, they go on all year long and all over the state. Lots of places have gun shows, and that's a great place for us to engage people.
Yeah. All right, guys. Listen, thank you very much, both Gary and Ed, for joining us this evening. And like they said, check out our website, conventionestates.com. I'm going to touch on that a little bit as we get a little further along here. And we also have a Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. So we'll be posting those gun show events on the Facebook page too. So like I said, we've had great success. These two individuals have really put us on the map with gun shows here in the state of Indiana. And so I want to thank them for the great job that they do. So thank you very much, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Dale.
All right. Good night. I'm going to send them back away here and get Ed out of the way here. Okay. And I'm going to, excuse me, folks, I'm just making a few adjustments here as I get, now, what I want to do now is I want to get into the next segment. I want to give you some information about our state and about Convention of States. So I'm going to try and give you a little bigger screen here so that you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. And hopefully you can see this a little better now. Okay, let's get into, I want to give you some information about the state and about how we're doing in the state of Indiana. We have a number of resources available to us here in the state. Our main resource is our national website, conventionofstates.com. We mentioned that this evening in our first segment. Now, on that website, we utilize this website a great deal. It's got a wealth of information on it for anyone interested in convention of states. It's also on the back end. It's also a website that we use to administer our organization here in the state. Now, embedded in that national website is our state website page, which is conventionofstates.com/Indiana. So obviously that's a more focused look on our state, but that's embedded in the national website. Social media, we're on Facebook, Convention of States Indiana. As a matter of fact, this broadcast is coming to you tonight through our state Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. Feel free to like the page and tune in and see what's going on in the state of Indiana on Facebook. YouTube channel, COS Indiana. Now, our YouTube channel is very much an educational resource. We have some narrated PowerPoint presentations. We have recordings of the broadcast. This broadcast, as a matter of fact, by tomorrow, will be on our YouTube channel, a recording of and as well as the recording will appear on our Facebook page, Convention of States Indiana. So, but back again on the YouTube channel, we also have links to a podcast that our legislative liaison and co-state director of support is Paul Phillips, and he does a podcast called the Free to Be Free podcast. So every time he generates a podcast, we put a link on the YouTube channel to that podcast, so it's easy to get to them. They're very, very good, very informative podcasts. As a matter of fact, we use those frequently as resource material for a lot of our broadcast presentations. Also, we're on Twitter, hashtag COS Indiana. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, and probably some other social media platforms that I haven't got listed here. So if you're into social media, if you're into being involved in social media, we're on various platforms. So we're out there, and you shouldn't have any trouble finding us. Now, let me give you some numbers on Convention of States. In 2018, we went over 30,000 supporters here in the state of Indiana. So we set as our goal for 2019, we set 40,000 as our goal. We have already surpassed 40,000. We're over 40,000 here in the state of Indiana. Soon you will hear us be talking about our goal for 2020. And I'll tell you right now, it's 52,000. That's our goal for 2020. Now, folks, just to give you an idea of how fast we've been growing, I've been at this job about 3 years now. When I first started this job in Indiana, we had 14,000 supporters. Now, in 3 years, we've grown to over 40,000. So we have had tremendous growth, and it's continuing here in the state of Indiana, as well as nationally. Volunteers, we got about 2,900 of those over 30,000 supporters, over 40,000, I should say. About 2,900 are volunteers, people that have indicated a willingness to help out if needed. And we have about 40 people in leadership positions. Now, these are volunteer leadership positions. And if you have any desire to get more involved in our movement, I encourage you, here's this website again, go to our national website, conventionofstates.com. Click on the menu selection, Take Action, scroll down and look at the various volunteer leadership positions that we have. If one's of interest to you, open it up, read about it. If you're still very interested, make application. Now, you're not obligated in any way. Don't worry about that. But what that does is then your name comes up on a report that I and a few others see every day. And one of us then will be in contact with you so we can talk further about your interest in that position. So if you have any desire to get into leadership, go to Convention of States. I should say, if you have any desire to be a supporter of Convention of States, go to our national website, conventionofstates.com, open an account and sign the petition. Then if you really would like to get more involved, go to the menu selection, take action, and look at the different volunteer opportunities that we have available here. Love to have you join us. Love to have you join us. All right, let's talk about the Convention of States basics. The basics fall into three tenets: the problem, the solution, and the plan. The problem is our federal government lacks the will and the courage to address some basic structural issues in our government. And we've further defined those issues into three abuses that we call abuses of the federal government. Now, this has been going on for decades. We're not blaming any one political party for this. Both parties have contributed to this situation. So this is not something that has just developed. This has been going on for a long time. The three abuses that we talk about are, number one, the national debt. Very little, if anything, is being done to address that. What is it, over 23 trillion now? The second abuse has to do with the regulatory crisis. Now, I know the current administration's been eliminating a number of regulations, but much more needs to be done in this area. It's now considered the fourth branch of government, and that's the administrative state. So much more needs to be done in this area. And the final abuse has to do with the power between the federal government and the states. When the country was founded, the concept of dual federalism was in play, where the federal government and the states would share in power. Well, that's all tilted toward the federal government now. And we think contributing a great deal to this problem, this abuse, is the career politician. So in this particular area, we think term limits is going to be the answer. But so the solution is in Article 5, Convention of States for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Now, Article 5, we're not making this up. This is actually in Article 5 of our Constitution. Article 5 describes the two methods of amending the Constitution. The first method, which is what we're used to seeing, 27 amendments have been made according to this particular method. 2/3 of Congress proposes amendments, and then 38 states or 3/4 of the state legislatures have to then ratify any proposed amendment for it to become an amendment to the Constitution. Well, there's a second method in Article 5, and that's where 2/3 of the state legislatures make application to conduct a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Any proposed amendments that come out of that convention would then have to go through the same ratification process as in Method 1, where 3/4 of the state legislatures would have to ratify any proposed amendment that would come out of the Convention of States. This is what we're all about, folks, is implementing this second method, holding a Convention of States to propose amendments that would address those abuses that we've identified. That's what we're all about. That's what we're trying to bring about. Now, our plan to do this is in two parts. Number one is the application strategy. We want to get 34 states to use the same application, literally the same application form that we have devised. And this form addresses three areas: fiscal restraints, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and term limits. Those are the three abuses, the three areas that we see abuses in our federal government. And that the subject matter of this application is what drives the agenda of the convention. So we want 34 states to actually use this application form. The second part of the plan is mobilizing the grassroots. And that's, once again, that's citizens and state legislatures mobilizing the grassroots to bring this about. Now, we've had tremendous success, tremendous momentum. We've got over 4 million supporters across the country, over 40,000 here in the state of Indiana. We're in all 50 states now. Now, 15 states have already made application, passed, but it's also referred to as a resolution. 15 states have passed the resolution. So we need to get to 34. And yes, Indiana is one of those states. We were the sixth state to pass this resolution. So we need to get to 34. And we need your involvement if you're at all interested in getting involved in Convention of States. All right, let's go back now to the rest of the program, and let me see if I can identify any individuals that have joined us this evening or made comments. Don't see anything on there, so we'll move on this section. I just wanted to tell you that our next broadcast, which will be next Monday evening, December 16th, and we're bringing on then our Convention of States volunteer, Debbie Stewart, that has been presenting the constitutional literacy program. And she will be coming back on and presenting chapter 3 of that presentation. And chapter 3 deals with the executive branch of our government. She presented chapter 2 a couple weeks ago, which was, of course, the legislative area. So chapter 3 will be on December 16th, and it will deal with the executive branch of our government, which is Article 2 of our Constitution. Now, after next week's presentation, we're going to break for Christmas and New Year's. So next week, December 16th, will be the last presentation or the last broadcast for the month of December. So our next broadcast will then be on January 6th, 2020. So just want to make sure you understand what's going to be happening. So please tune in next Monday evening at 7 p.m. for constitutional literacy. Well, let me get that out of the way here. And as you know, we've, I wanted to get that. There we go here. We've, I generally wrap things up with a quote that our, one of our co-founders, Mark Meckler, current president of Convention of States, one of his favorite quotes is that, our country is faced with a fundamental question. And the question is not what should we do? The question is who will decide? And I just think that's so important. The question facing us is basically a two-word question, very simply, who decides? And of course, in Convention of States, we the people believe should have a larger role in making these decisions. So once again, folks, if any of you are interested in getting involved in Convention of States here in Indiana, I would encourage you, something in my eye there. I would please encourage you, go to our national website, conventionofstates.com, open an account, sign our petition, and become a supporter, at least a supporter here at Convention of States. And if you're really interested in getting involved, look at the volunteer opportunities that we have for you. We really, really would love to have your participation in our movement. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up for you this evening. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us, and please keep us in mind and hope to see you and as a supporter for Convention of States here in Indiana. So good night, everyone.